Today we're going to cover Manor Life. In today's lesson, we're going to discuss a little bit of an introduction to Manor Life, and we're also going to discuss who lived on the manor. Let's start with a little bit of introduction to Manor Life. Most manors had anywhere from 250 to 500 people living on the manor. The largest manor in history had approximately 600 people on it. It produced everything that they needed. It was a self-sufficient operation. It produced food, it produced clothing, and it produced building and farming tools for the workers. There were two operations where people would live. There was a not so well put together cottage for the peasants, and there was a manor house for the Lord and his family. 1/3 of the manor belonged to the Lord. The Lord, the vassal, and the king could all three own a manor. Let's move on to who lived on the manor. In most instances, and on most manors, the vassal was the owner. The serf would work on the land, would work on the farmland, would work on whatever the operation was going on. In return, would get food and housing. Let's move on to a peasant. A peasant is a low-status laborer who had a little farmland to harvest. Okay, so a peasant is a worker who had a little farmland to harvest. Let's move on to servant. Servant is a peasant who cleaned, washed, tended duties in the household. So there's a difference. A peasant is a person who works the farmland. A servant is a person who works inside the house. Now, we're going to talk, or through the next 2 years, in 6th and 7th grade, you'll hear systems in the United States very similar to the manor. Now, the manor could be a larger version of one of those systems, but it is not the same. Because these groups, some of them could leave at certain points. There was 1 or 2 groups had to stay, which we'll talk about in class, but 1 or 2 groups could leave at any point after a certain time frame, and which we'll talk about as well. So, in today's lesson we have talked about a little bit of an introduction that most had 250 to 500 members on it. They produced everything they needed: food, clothing, and tools. 1/3 of the land belonged to the Lord. Who lived on the manor? 4 groups. Vassal, who was the owner. Serf, worked on land in return for food and housing. Peasant, had to tend to farmland. And servant, had to work in the house. This ends Manor Life's lesson for today.